The General, also known as the Raj Whitehall series, after the lead character, is a set of military science fiction books written by S.M. Stirling from an outline by David Drake. Clearly inspired by the Byzantine commander Belisarius, the series shares numerous common elements with the more recent Belisarius series by Drake and Eric Flint. Warlord, Conqueror, The Chosen, The Reformer, and The Tyrant are available online, for free, at the Fifth Imperium website and the When the Tide Rises CD. Bellevue series centering on Rojaminda Helgern de Louise Whitehall written by S.M. Stirling and David Drake. The Forged, 1991. The Hammer, 1992. The Anvil, 1993. The Steel, 1993. The Sword, 1995. The first two books were also published as an omnibus. Warlord, 2003, which was reissued as Hope Reborn, March 2013. The last three in another omnibus is Conqueror, 2003. The second two books were published as an omnibus. Hope Rearmed, March 2014. The final novel was published with The Chosen in an omnibus as Hope Renewed, July 2014. Viziger series The Chosen, 1996, written by S.M. Stirling and David Drake. This was republished in an omnibus with The Sword as Hope Renewed, July 2014. Haffordine series The Reformer, 1999, written by S.M. Stirling and David Drake. The Tyrant, 2002, written by Eric Flint and David Drake. These were republished in an omnibus as Hope Reformed, November 2014. Duisburg series The Heretic, April 2013, Tony Daniel and David Drake, in which Center refers to a character from Isaac Asimov's Foundation series with the Fibonacci projection using Selden values for social normatives. And the Seldenian calculus and its subsequent application in psychodynamic topography. The Savior, September 2014, Tony Daniel and David Drake. The first 5 books are set on the planet Bellevue, previously part of a high-technology galactic civilization, the Federation. Interstellar civilization collapsed during the fall, when extensive civil war greatly reduced the planet's technology level. Technology has redeveloped only slowly. The most advanced groups have reached the level of double expansion steam engines, wrapped brass cartridges, breech-loading rifles, Martini Henry lock or very similar, and lever-action carbines, cast steel breech-loading cannon, simple revolvers, etc. Progress is slow. The breech-loading rifle design has not changed for over 200 years, and other groups still use flintlock or percussion cap weapons. The concept of computer technology has become the basis of religion throughout the world. The spirit of man, with priestly hierarchs, cis-ups, and an inquisition called the antiviral cleansers. This religion is split into 2 competing sects, the spirit of man of the stars, the state religion of the civil government, and spirit of man of this earth, which is more popular among the barbarian military governments. The people of Bellevue speak various evolved dialects, including Spanglish, Spanjol, Namaric, and Patois, with elements of English, French and Spanish apparent. At the time of the fall the planet had no horses, so now cavalry is mounted on 1,000-pound dogs of various breeds. The books begin in the year of the fall 1103, when the protagonist Raj Whitehall and his friend Tom Poplendick stumble on a still working remnant of the old technology, the quantum supercomputer Center, which Raj and Tom regard as an angel. Center describes itself as a sentient artificial entity of photonic subsystems tasked with the politico-military supervision of Bellevue. Center charges Whitehall with uniting Bellevue and provides him, through a constant mental link, with predictive visions that simulate probable situational outcomes, historical data, eidetic memory, and minor enhancements to physical abilities including accuracy with firearms. Raj couples these assets with his own charisma and skill to become an extremely effective military leader. Meanwhile, his wife Suzette quietly uses her own highly developed court intrigue skills to neutralize Raj's political foes and obstacles behind the scenes, compensating for his more direct tactics. Center keeps Tom in suspended animation within its sanctum, explaining that he will otherwise probably be the victim of political assassination before long, and begins to educate him in matters more related to civil administration. As Raj acknowledges, and Center's projections confirm, he would not be an effective civilian leader, but Tom the legitimate heir, with the assistance of Raj and Center will. True to their historical model, the campaigns of Belisarius, the books focus on the convoluted strategic offensive, tactical defensive campaigns of General Whitehall around the Mid-World Sea and his fraught relationships with his paranoid but capable Emperor-Governor Barholm Claret and Claret's avaricious and corrupt Chancellor Tzetzes. Whitehall's nation calls itself the civil government, and it is centrally located between the rival nations of the military governments, the Brigade and the Squadron, and the Muslim colonists. The protagonist of the story, Raj Amanda Halgrand Louise Whitehall of Hillchapel, hereditary supervisor of Smythe Parish, Scott County, is chosen by the Sector Command and Control MKXIV computer he calls Center to unite Bellevue in order to restore civilization on the planet and save it from a downward spiral that, according to Center's projections, might last as long as 15,000 years. On his campaigns, he collects a group of companions, able commanders who form the ad hoc overall command group of the Whitehall's armies. His campaigns begin on the border of the civil government with the Islamic colony at Sandaral, then go on to the barbarian-controlled southern territories of the Squadron and the western territories of the Brigade, and culminate in his defense of the civil government once more at Sandaral against the colony's main army. Throughout the series, Raj Whitehall is doubted and suspected of treason by Governor Barholm Claret, despite continuously proving his loyalty, even after he thwarts an attempt on Claret's life by ending a coup staged by Tom Poplenika's brother Des and troops led by Colonel Stanson. Raj Whitehall's exceptionally intelligent, strong-willed, and resourceful wife, who accompanies him on his campaigns. Mrs. Suzette Emanal Furstenhoder Winka Whitehall, Lady of Hillchapel. The Winka family goes back to the fall, pure but proud. Suzette is also close friends with Barholm's wife, Lady Anne Claret, who started out as a child whore near the Canadrome. Suzette uses any means necessary to convince those potentially harmful to her husband to actually help him, including sleeping with those individuals despite and perhaps because of her intense devotion to Raj. She relies on a cadre of devoted servants and spies to gather intelligence in support of her husband's career. The companions, men loyal to General Whitehall, form the de facto overall command group of Whitehall's expeditionary forces, as the army does not have a structure of command higher than battalion level. Most of them are of the Messer class, the nobility of the civil government. The companions are formed in the Forge when Whitehall is called to an incident in a farmstead during the march to Comar, and Stainbridge, Foley, the Gruters, and Bruce, and M. Lewis volunteer to accompany him. Captain Stanson calls them the loyal companions in a half-serious jest, and the name sticks. Colonel Garen Stainbridge becomes companion in the Forge, second in overall command. Raj Whitehall's right-hand man, directly commands 5th D Scott Guards, later Raj's own. Before the series begins, the boredom and idleness of garrison duty had dulled his edge, but he quickly regains it during action in the field. Colonel Jorg Menez becomes companion in the Forge, overall infantry commander, directly commands 17th Kildon County Foot. Forced into the less prestigious infantry due to being allergic to dogs. Colonel Gramek Dinelson becomes companion in the Hammer, overall artillery commander. Dinelson, like most artillerymen in the Gubernio Civil, is somewhat of an engineer, as he is knowledgeable on matters concerning fortifications and weapons development. Muzaff Kirkpatrick becomes companion in the Forge, non-military, a Comarite, Arab, traitor who swears loyalty to Raj Whitehall after coming to feel shame for taking part in the dealings of Chancellor Tzetzes, which had led to the weakening of Comar's defenses. He is Raj's main logistics man and the chief steward of the Whitehall's wealth. Major Kelton Grutter becomes companion in the Forge, commands 7th D Scott Rangers. Was a company commander of the 5th D Scott, promoted to command of the 7th D Scott after the Valley of Death battle in the Forge. Disapproves of Suzette Whitehall's apparent infidelity to her husband. Major Ewardo Poplenik becomes companion in the Hammer, commands Poplenika's own. This battalion is recruited from the Poplenik family's estates around East Residence. Ewardo is cousin to Tom and Des Poplenik, and is killed in the steel by the brigade under the walls of Old Residence. Captain Everard Grutter becomes companion in the Forge, younger brother of Kelton Grutter. Killed in the Forge by a shell from a colonial pom-pom, a light field gun with a higher rate of fire and smaller shells than the civil government's. Captain Barton Foley becomes companion in the Forge, commands, accompanies 5th D Scott Guards. Loses his left hand in the Forge to a pom-pom shell, he replaces it with a sharpened hook. Foley is Garen Stainbridge's protege-cum-boyfriend, and is fond of literature. Before every major battle in the field, Foley gives the following toast to end staff meetings: he fears his fate too much, and his deserts are small. he who will not put it to the touch to win or lose it all. Foley's interest in literature will garner him an award for his book, Raj Whitehall and His Times, which he writes after Tom Poplinick is enshrined as governor and Centre declares the fall to be ended. Senior Captain Anton M. Lewis becomes companion in the Forge, commands 5th D Scott Guard Scout Unit, the 40 Thieves. Hails from Bufford Parish, the most lawless part of not-so-lawful D Scott County. Distinguished by his wire garrote and the skinning knife he carries on his left side. M. Lewis meets Raj Whitehall when he is brought before Raj concerning a farmer's pig, or a shoat, gone missing despite a no-foraging order. He gains Raj's confidence and eventually heads a special team of similar characters known as the 40 Thieves, leading them through intimidation and example through scouting missions into enemy territory. Major Michael Fido becomes companion in the Hammer, a junior lieutenant in the 5th. He was supposed dead in the retreat from El Jam. However, he survives and rises to command the 1st Rogers Slashers at the start of the Southern Territories campaign. Shot under truce banner after parley with Squadron Admiral Auburn. Major Tejan Ambrosed becomes companion in the Hammer, commands 1st Rogers Slashers, then 2nd Cruisers. Takes command of 1st Rogers Slashers after death of Michael Fido in the Hammer, later transferred to the 2nd Cruisers in the Anvil. Major Pedro Belajes becomes companion in the Forge, commands 1st Rogers Slashers, after Tejan Ambrosed is transferred to 2nd Cruisers. Responsible, with Muzaf Kirkpatrick, for the capture of the squadrons responsible for the murder of Michael Fido, and their crucifixion at Raj's orders. Major Adolfo Zapata becomes companion in the Hammer, commands 18th Comar Borderers. Major Ludwig Bellamy becomes companion in the Hammer, commands 1st Cruisers, ex-squadron soldiers conscripted into the civil government army. The son of one of the first local warlords to seek allegiance with Whitehall's invasion force. Major Theodore Welf becomes companion in the Steel, commands 1/591 ST, 2/591 ST, 3/591 ST ex-brigaderos soldiers conscripted into the civil government army. Formerly second in overall command of the brigade, a position he shared with Grand Constable Howard Karstens, under General of the Brigade Ingrid Mangfront. Center, Sector Command and Control Unit AZ-12B-14C000NK-14. Is an artificial intelligence attempting to unite planet Bellevue and restore technological civilization, with the intent to later restore faster-than-light travel and then re-establish civilization on the other planets of the collapsed Interplanetary Federation. Center's original purpose, prior to the collapse of civilization, appears to have been as a system for tactical and strategic command of the local military units. The original scope of local is never made clear. Center originates with the collapsed Federation in the original civil government, and its alignment with the current civil government is due simply to the geographical accident of being located below the capital city. Due to the destruction of Center's external sensors, orbiting satellites etc., during the fall, Center is limited to data either obtained previously or via the link to Raj Whitehall's senses and thoughts. Center provides constant probabilistic analysis and future projections of the political, social, and military situation. This analysis is essential in steering choices away from local optimum, decisions that appear correct at the time but which would lead to eventual disaster. Center also provides historical references to Earth's history that relate to technology and specific relevant historical conflicts. Center is not merely an assistant, it is clearly the driving force behind Raj Whitehall, using Whitehall's leadership to achieve Center's goals. Initially, Whitehall's cooperation is due to superstitious obedience to what he perceives as a supernatural entity. Then the relationship becomes increasingly more cooperative as Whitehall understands the true situation and the necessity of his actions. Center's stated sole motivation is the betterment of mankind, to bring about the end of war by creating a united society. On Bellevue, most people are peasants, the bottom rung in the agrarian economies. Due to the mostly feudal and autocratic forms of government, this greatly limits their ability to achieve their full potential. Center plans to bring about stability, technological advancement, and democracy, in that order. Mostly analytic and unengaged, Center's comments occasionally have an emotional shade, most often in the form of ironic humor. Absolute despot of the colony. Required to be perfect in body under Islamic law. The settler of the colony in the Forge, killed during the Battle of Sander Island, his head brought to Raj Whitehall by Skinner Chief Juluk. Became settler after defeating his brother Akbar in a civil war following their father's death. He is cowardly, cruel, capricious, vindictive, and psychotic. Killed, presumably by his brother Tofek, who brings his head to Raj as a peace offering, in the sword. Military commander of the colony and brother to the settler, would probably have been the settler, had not an eye lost in combat disqualified him as imperfect in body. Possibly a more capable combat commander than even Raj Whitehall. Mainly appears in the first and fifth volumes of the series. Remnants of those who remain loyal to the Federation in the civilian government capitolate in the city of East Residence. It is the planet's most technologically advanced nation. The civil government is governed by a hierarchy of ministers headed by a single governor, who is also the head of the Church of Holy Federation and vice-regent of the Spirit of Man. Governors are placed on the chair either by hereditary inheritance or by shooting their way onto the chair, a coup, usually by a successful general, but sometimes a defeated one. This fear of military coups is why the civil government has no military structure above the brigade level. This lack of a higher command is one of the reasons why the civil government had suffered the loss of the western and southern territories to the brigade and squadron respectively over the centuries. Raj Whitehall believes that the civil government is the legitimate ruler of all Bellevue. Residents of the civil government speak Spanglish, a mangled version of Spanish and English which apparently is descended primarily from Mexican Spanish. This state is modeled on the Byzantine Empire. Barbarian military government established by the descendants of the 591st Provisional Brigade, the most technologically advanced of the military governments. The brigade, having moved from south their original lands, referred to as the base area, has ruled the former civil government Western Territories for 600 years. All male members of the brigade are referred to as unit brothers. The ruling or noble class of the brigade, referred to as Brazaz or Brassas, bear titles that refer to the brigade's former military organization based on officer ranks, such as hereditary captain or hereditary colonel. The brigade is ruled by hereditary king with the title of general of the brigade. The general may be disposed by impeachment if called for and voted on by the members of noble class at an assembly at arms. The brigade, unlike the squadron, maintains a standing army with a system of compulsory service, as well as requiring nobles to contribute household troops in time of war. Brigade forces use rifle muskets, which are primitive compared to the armoried breech loaders used by the civil government army. All brigadieros carry a basket-hilt broadsword in conjunction with cap and ball revolvers. The brigade do not field infantry, but only cavalry and a few brass or bronze-cast siege cannon. Cavalry units are split between mounted dragoons and lancers, who also carry 2-meter-long lances. Brigadeiro soldiers wear front and back breastplates, which are resistant to the hollow point lead bullets fired by civil government rifles. This leads the civil government army to switch to brass-tipped bullets to puncture such armor. Residents of the brigade speak the dialects of Spanjol and Namarique, remnants of Spanish and French/English respectively. This state is modeled on the Ostrogoths of Belisarius' time. Barbarian military government established by the descendants of the 2nd Cruiser Squadron. Despite having conquered the civil government's southern territories some 200 years ago, and resisting at least one prior civil government expedition to retake the lost territories, the squadron is less developed than the brigade, and with a more maritime orientation. Ruled by a hereditary king, bearing the title of admiral, the squadron does not have a standing army, but in times of war calls forth a war levy composed of all male squadron members of fighting age. Armed with flintlock muskets, blunderbusses, axes, and broadswords, squadron warriors traditionally fight under household banners or associations and are noted for delivering frenzied charges into close combat with their foes. The squadrons can be likened to the Germanic or Norse berserkers, both from physical appearance. They are described as large, pale-skinned and well-built and some with Swabian knots, and from their apparent love for combat, it is shameful in their culture to shun or flee from battle. In Raj Whitehall's campaign in the Southern Territories, the squadrons literally charge into the fire of the civil government field guns and are comprehensively defeated. Residents of the squadron's land speak the dialects of Spanjol and Namarique, remnants of Spanish and French/English respectively. This state is modeled on the Vandals of Belisarius' time. Barbarian nomads employed by the civil government as mercenaries. Notorious anarchists, with a reputation for marksmanship, dog riding, and atrocities. The Skinners speak a mangled mixture of English and French, Patois. They are reminiscent of the Huns. There are many references to the Skinners coming from French Canada, particularly Quebec. One of the groups is the Trois-Rivières tribe. There are also examples of French Canadian names. This also explains the mixture of French and English. Little is known of the Zanj city-states or its people, other than that Tofek ibn Jamal lost his eye while campaigning there, and that it is the source of cave, coffee, and the extremely valuable Torafid silk. The Zanj are practitioners of Baha'i. This form of worship is particularly offensive to the Orthodox Sunni Muslims of the colony, and perhaps the source and cause of the Zanj wars. In the follow-up novel The Chosen, a copy of Center, along with the recorded mind of Raj Whitehall, is sent to the planet Visager to help boost that society to the point where it too can join what has now become Bellevue's multi-world federation. This time, Center recruits half-brothers Jeffrey Farr and John Hostin to help remake a world. Standing in their way is a nation of eugenically bred warriors called the Chosen, the strongest, most technologically advanced military force on the planet, who believe that all non-chosen are merely slaves who haven't been caught yet. The novel's setting is based on Europe, with recognizable analogues for England, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, during the early 20th century, before and after World War I, and on what David Drake considered the reality of S.M. Stirling's Drake universe. The next two books also have Center and Raj in their overseer/advisor roles, assisting Adrian Gellert, whose brother Esmond also plays a pivotal role in bringing back civilization to Haffordine. It is based upon the fall of the Roman Republic. Duisburg is based on an ancient Egyptian model. The first book in the new setting became available April 2013. Center and Raj assist Abel Dashian, the son of a military officer, in his attempt to take down a supercomputer that suppresses societal advancement. If Dashian succeeds, then civilization will be allowed to progress on Duisburg. There was an outline for a book called The Green Planet, which had implementation problems and was canned. The author states it was probably a bad idea. No, it wasn't my idea, but I acquiesced. It's unlikely ever to be turned into a novel,